If you're an audiobook lover and fellow Fourth Wing Empyrean series fan like I am, I think you're going to fangirl like me today because I'm so excited to have Rebecca Soler with me today. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you for having me. I'm a fellow Empyrean series fan myself.
It was so exciting. But
I
I have
mean,
to say, Fourth Wing was actually the first audiobook of yours that I had listened to. And I got my husband to listen to it because he is also an avid audiobook listener. And we both turned to each other and went, she's great. So you have so many other books you have narrated as well as kids content, right? And we'll get
yeah,
into all of this. Stephanie Garber books have been on my TBR list for so long. I have a lot more listening to do this year. But
yay.
for those that are not familiar with you yet, can you share a bit about yourself and your journey to where you are now?
Sure. I am a New York City based actress that, I originally went to school for musical theater, loved a good show tune. Went to school in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon, graduated, and then, went to New York to rule the world. And definitely did my fair share of stage work and what they call legit uh, acting, as like its kind of genre, and then found my way into voiceover, initially through animation and through actually some Japanese anime, and then got my agent through that. And then it was actually my agent, my beloved Sherry Hoffman, who introduced me to audiobook narration. Because what's really cool about voiceover in general, other than I can be in my pajamas and work and not have to worry about what I look like, is that there's so many different ways that you can utilize your voice or be used for in a variety of applications. And for me, I'm such an avid reader, a big time, love a book, always have a book in my hand, always on the subway reading a book. That it was for me a perfect marriage of both, like, my art and my profession with my personal passions. Loved it. And then also it actually kind of augmented. I mean, if my foundation in voiceover was cartoon work and various finding different voices, right? What's cool about narration is, like, in animation, I have to sound, appropriately like the character, right? But in audiobook narration, I'm playing like 80-year-old men or Zayden, things that I would never be cast otherwise. And that's what's kind of fun, is that you get to do all of the voices in narration in a great way. That's actually, for me, it's not daunting. For me, it's freeing, because let's face it, I'm not Zayden, and there's going to be a man that doesn't, a magical performance if he were actually cast in that role, right? Ted Hamilton does a fabulous job. But I can embody the essence of that person and, like, be along for the ride. And that, I guess, is, you said brief intro, but I've already chatted
Oh,
a
it's okay.
bunch.
It's okay.
But
We
yeah,
are
so that's
going
how
to
I
get it
that's
all.
how I that's how I like segued into this, amongst all the other things that I still do as an actor. This is one of my personal favorites and loves, just because I'm a huge book nerd.
So I love this journey because I too didn't start out going, oh, I'm going to make YouTube videos or create a book talk or these kinds of things. I have like my regular day job of a corporate life. And then because of my love for books, right? And Fourth Wing actually made me start book talk and then booktube and all of this that came out of it. And I get to talk to my like favorite narrators and my favorite authors. And I'm like, okay, we can do all these fun things and see where the road leads, right? So I love that.
Yeah, and the road is not linear.
Mhm.
And nor is there an expiration date on when you should have different paths on that road, which, I think that is the biggest lesson that I'm currently learning, is why not do something completely new today, um, that takes your life in a direction that you never even thought of. To your point, hosting this podcast and speaking to people, based solely on a personal passion. Like, love this.
Yeah. And we'll definitely get into more of that too, because I would do a lot of work with moms, right? Of find your joy, find your passions, like let yourself thrive instead of just living in the day to day, right? And we're both
Yeah,
moms. We get it. We're both
we're
working moms.
100% fall victim to the day to day more than I don't fall the victim to it, right? Which I think is an important message to share. Like it can appear like, wow, she really has it together. But like, I will say honestly, most days I am not picking myself. Most days I'm picking someone else
Yeah.
out of duty or love or obligation or just like financial need, right? So it's a good reminder. This podcast is a good reminder for me as your person that you're chatting with, and hopefully to the people that listen, like just carve out some personal time every day and let's all do it. Okay.
Yes.
People
We're
out
holding each other
there.
accountable. We said it here.
We said it here. I'm writing it on my to-do list right now.
Well, this is kind of like me time because I get to talk and I get to have girl time and I get to share, right?
Me
So,
too. Me too.
so we
Minus the wine and the cheese. That would have been like even, it's too early for the wine and the cheese, but that would have been like
next time we're gonna
utopian.
do that.
Totally.
Coffee, I don't do coffee, but tea and biscuits, I don't know.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So we will get to Fourth Wing specifically in a bit because I'm dying to know a lot of things. I'm sure a lot of other listeners are dying to know. But let's go from the beginning of the narration process in your journey. You have narrated various books, like we said, including kid stuff, romantic, romance, mystery, like it's all over the place. Was there a specific genre that you wanted to end up at?
Um, so what I learned, quick answer is no. I read so much. I love it all. I really do. I love it all. What I will say is what I've learned and benefited from learning from being a voiceover performer is um, I am a very distinct sound, right? I sound really young. So it makes sense that the genres of books that I'm being cast to read have people that are in their 20s or even in their teens, or because of my, animation work, like little children, babies. Um, so as a result, I am not organically, when people are hiring, they're not hiring me for the nonfiction account of like the Spanish American War, right? They're hiring me for things that feel or sound age appropriate to what my sound is, regardless of my age. Um, and so I think that lent itself for me first doing a lot of young adult narration. Also, I had personal friends with E. Lockhart, and her husband is a Tony Award winning director, and he had directed me earlier in my career at this theater, and we had built a friendship. And she had one of her books that we were working on that was a children's book. So I did that for her. And then I did one of her other books, Genuine Fraud. And it just, the sound of my voice at the time really lent itself to YA. And honestly, I love an unrequited love story. I love some emotional drama that's like, late teens, early 20s. Like, who doesn't love that? Like, there's so much,
Angsty.
yeah, angsty, fabulous. And also, there used to be sort of this um, thought that young adult fiction was like de rigueur or not as legit as adult fiction, which I will fight you over that idea because I think some of the most remarkable literature is being written from the POV of a younger adult. It doesn't necessarily mean we're not talking about Judy Blume, which I love Judy Blume and I've done some of her books. Like that was like a full circle moment, but it's a more elevated topic for a more elevated reader. So I started there and then really established my career there and had a readership and worked directly with the publishers. And they then knew, um, I'm always on time. I'm always so prepped that if they book me for 3 days, I'll probably finish the book in 2 days. I remember their kids' names. I, like know everything about them, treat them like humans, like have a good attitude, coming in, grateful for the work, grateful, love what I do, and promise to like over deliver on their expectations. And I think that in any career, in any industry, that is what is going to make the difference. And it's why you could be the most talented human in the world, but if you are, uh, I don't know what language you could use on this podcast, so I shall simply say less than whimsical and like really flaky and kind of a head case, they're not going to hire you back. Like they have a budget and they need to honor their budget. And I'm also really realistic. These publishers now have a budget where they are hiring Meryl Streep and paying Meryl Streep. And then they have a budget for the books that don't get Meryl Streep or the Beastie Boys, or Amy Poehler or President Obama, right? They have like the celebrity budget books, and then they have like the normal everyday working class actor books. And so within that category of normal everyday working class actor books, like I am trying to be the easiest person to work with. And that's really served me in the last 15 years of my career.
I absolutely love that message because the things I teach my kids, like integrity, right? Like act with
Mhm.
integrity, show up, do your best. Like you don't have to be the best of the best, but show up as, like
Yeah.
treat people with kindness, do all these things. And in this world right now, I feel like that doesn't always get recognized. So I appreciate that has
Right.
served you well and that people have recognized that. And
Yeah, and lead with empathy. And the
yeah.
people that you work with, I think when you're young, and especially in the acting industry, you just are like casting director. You sort of put people up on podiums, right? But ultimately, they're trying to pay their, electric bill too. They're a human being too. So as easy as you make their life, or as challenging as you make their life, like send the email, respond quickly, even down to like the SAG paperwork. I have like a whole other area of work that I do. And the gentleman that always casts me brings me in. He's like, Rebecca, you know what I love about you? You never have an error in your SAG paperwork. There's never an omission that I have to follow up with you and be like, you missed signing on page 3. He's like, you get it back to me immediately. And I never even have to double check that you initialed where you needed to initial. Because why? Love my fellow actors, but a flaky bunch of peeps. But like, if you operate like every time that I just do what I do well, I'm going to save somebody time and they're going to have more time with their family, or they're not going to have to stress about this. The more you treat humans like humans, it's why I have actually been with my agents for almost 20 years and they are my friends. Like, not a lot of agents become your friends because if you're always using them sort of for like what they can get you, that I don't know. It goes back to Amy, to what you were saying. Lead with empathy and integrity. Treat people like humans. And everybody works with the people that they want to work with, right?
Mhm.
So they're just
Mhm.
gonna want to work with you because you make their life, it's funner. It's more like joy. So pick the joy, but in order to earn the joy, do the work and like show up and be prepped within an inch of your life so that you can execute. So like if you're on set and they're filming you, your lines are so down, you've memorized that blocking so well that they can do it in 2 takes. And they're like, yep, they're professional. Like this isn't me waiting for Godot on a stage, like, and soaking it up. It's like, no, that set, it costs money and everybody is waiting on you to just execute. There's a marriage between art and commerce, and it's a sweet spot. Love and celebrate the art, but respect the commerce part. And that is ultimately what creates longevity in this career.
Yeah. And you see it everywhere, basically, right? And people say it's the next generation, but there is a sense of entitlement in a lot
Mhm.
of people. And so I hear what you're saying, and I'm like, yes, Rebecca, yes. Can we teach
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, and that is, I think there's a little bit of an overbloating, like, I have an opinion, and so I should be able to say it. even if it's not fact-based, even if it's completely, and it's sort of like, I would love to return to people pausing before they open their mouth and feeling like what they say is either going to add value, or be accurate,
Mhm.
right? Feelings are not facts. And I love an opinion and a POV, provided that you're being responsible and respectful with it.
Yes.
So yeah, I think you and I are like drinking from the same Kool-Aid, Amy.
Absolutely. And even in books, right? I say this in all of my videos and in my talks. It's like we are all going to have different opinions. Just say them with kindness and respect, which is exactly what you just said. So,
Yeah, 100%. People oftentimes don't like my voice. They're like, oh yeah, she's too much. And I get it. I know I'm cilantro. You either love me or I taste like soap. And earlier in my career, I think I was like trying like to say, yeah, I can be cinnamon. I can be cumin, or look at me. And I would like try to embody like this different thing and then go into these auditions. And instead of coming to my audition through my own, experiences and with my own POV and approaching the work kind of through respecting my cilantro-ness, I was becoming like a really watered down, not effective version of cinnamon. And then what happens is real cinnamon walks in the room. And you can't compete against real cinnamon when you're cilantro. I know this is a weird metaphor, but it is actually the metaphor that has helped
I love
me
it.
figure out like auditions and how to sort of be like De Niro. He is so De Niro, right?
Mhm.
For him to try to become Sir Ian McKellen, it's gonna be very strange. But he can approach the same text just through his own POV, and you will either love it or hate it. Look, the audience will let you know. They
Mhm.
will. But I can't change it. I can just do my best effort and respect when someone doesn't love it and respect when someone does.
You mentioned well, first of all, I love that analogy. And I have lots of friends that have that cilantro gene, so I totally get it, on board, totally get it. You mentioned the audition process. So I'd love to talk about that a little bit. I assume it's like other acting auditions too, where you're going up against other voiceover actors. And what is it like when you're working with a new author versus, the ones that you've worked with before and all of that?
So it's really interesting. The industry has shifted since I first started. I used to do, like, I live in New York because basically I graduated and you either went to New York or you went to LA. And I chose New York, even though I got some great responses in LA. But at my heart, I grew up in Boston. I'm a theater girl. I love a subway. I love some concrete. And I actually loved being surrounded by people that had nothing to do with the industry. Um, I need it for balance in my life. Like, if everything was about my work and like what you're working on, I think I would have potentially fallen victim to being like the woman on a treadmill eating a carrot all day. And I think I personally got to develop as a human and as an artist by all of the additional industries and worlds that don't care at all about what I do for a living in New York City. I just loved it. So when I first started out, we would do a lot in person at casting director offices, or my agent's office had two booths in it so that they would crank out a ton of auditions. Like, you would go, you'd see your peers and you'd all chat and how we're doing, blah, 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 blah. You'd go into the booth quickly, like lay down 2 or 3 or 4 auditions for commercials or animation or audiobooks, and then go on your way. Now, everything really is in a booth in your home. Not necessarily the booking, although a lot of narrators now, after COVID, are expected to record themselves, engineer themselves, QC themselves. And so it's like, it's a little sad to me because it's job eliminated other people who are much better at those jobs. Like, I rarely engineer myself. Luckily, I'm established enough where they'll pay for me to go into a booth and someone else can push the buttons and frankly is better at it than I am. But it is sort of Val, the new norm. So you are auditioning in your closet, right? With your soundproofing foam all over you and your clothes and your good mic and your great, your system and your laptop and recording there. And it can feel a little solo and isolating because you do all these auditions and you just kind of send them via email and you don't get any feedback. Where back when I first started, there was always a casting director there that would say, okay, that was a great first take. Let's try the next one this way. Or what about this? And you would get like direction. Um, Now it's a lot of trusting your gut and instinct and sending it out into the ether and seeing what sticks. So I feel badly for younger actors starting out because already as an actor, you didn't get a lot of feedback. You just would either get it or not get it. But now you don't even have as much access to an in-between person that you create a relationship with that can give you context. So it does take a whole lot of backbone to be like, well, if I book it or not, I'm doing these other 10 things today. And I'm just sending it out into the ether and it's okay. I'm not going to beat myself up. Now in my career, I get a lot of just offers because people have heard my work and they say, does Rebecca want to do this? Pretty much, unless the subject matter is something that I like, just it doesn't align with, my core belief system or something, for the most part, I'm always down. I'm like, yeah, let me read it. I love it. I'm going to read it anyway. Let me narrate it and get paid to read it. Like a lot of the stuff is really fun and cool. So that tends to be, I will always still audition because I think that authors get the right and should have the right after spending like just, months, years working on this book. They could love me, but still not think I am the voice for their lead character. And I want them to love the voice that's doing, their book after all that time they spent with it. Like, so I'm happy to audition and to get notes from them and for them to say, could you do it this way? Could you do it that way? Like, still, yes, you wrote the words. I'm just saying them out loud.
How have things changed with social media? Like the YouTube, the book talk, Bookstagram. Have you seen a change in that?
Yeah, I've seen a change in that. Um, I have more access to authors now with social media because interestingly enough, once I'm on a project, I'm still working with the producer who works for the publisher. They're at the publishing house. I don't often get like a direct line to the author themselves to ask them questions. So what I have actually had some great success doing is finding the authors who, even if they hate social media and they're only doing it because somebody's making them, do press for their own book, generally, if I DM them and I say, hi, I'm Rebecca Soler, and I just learned that I get to, the privilege of narrating X book. I was wondering if I'm about to, read through my first read through. If I have any questions on your preferences, can I reach out to you directly? And either I can reach you on your email if that's appropriate, or I can just send, pronunciation questions to you here or whatever you would be most comfortable with. And what I've noticed is authors are easier to engage in that regard. Um, and it's great because I would say, 8 times out of 10, they'll say, oh yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Someone is reading this book. What'd you think? And in the case of, Stephanie Garber, I have such a great like relationship with her where, I'll get a copy of the book, on the earlier side, right? Only she's written it. And then people I think she's Macmillan will have read it. And then I get it. And, I have at 2 a.m, like DM'd her to be like, no, how could you? And then she responds back. She's like, oh my God, Rebecca, oh, yay, you're the only person that's read it. I'm so glad you read it. And then I'm like, he's a bastard. What are you doing? And what's so great is, that's not the case with all the authors, but how fun is it to be able to like DM the author and be like, how could you do that to Evangeline? you know it's so great and fun. So I think for me, social media has it also has connected me to you, right? Like
Yes.
fellow book nerd enthusiasts that like want to talk about what you want to talk about. Like it can be so also fatiguing and distracting, and it can in many ways impact our mental health negatively. But I think if you use the power of social media for good, which is to connect and to find people who live totally different places in a different state, in a different country, who you can just sort of like have a lovely exchange with and chat about a favorite topic, like that's why the internet is good, you know.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. And we all fall to the doom scroll, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes. But if
yeah,
we can
yeah.
think of it as a tool and fantastic ways to connect, like book talk, I never thought I would be there. And then I had to talk to people. So that's how I started, right? And then it's been it's been really fun. It's been really fun.
And
So
what I have to say about audiobook fans
mhm.
is they are smart. Look, if you're an avid reader in general, I don't care how you read, if you listen or if you want a device or if you need the smell of a book
Yeah.
and you need a highlighter, like I love it all and I'm here for all of it. Um, but we are discerning, right? And so the feedback I get from audiobook listeners is like absolutely definitive, like clear. They have big opinions and have big expectations about how it should sound. And
Mhm.
actually, this is, I think, the biggest lesson I learned from my agent Sherry on what is different from audiobook narration versus any other kind of acting. Even film, as intimate as it can be, like close up on my nostril breathing in and out, right? That that audience member is still only as close as they're holding their phone or as their television is, right? But my audiobook listeners, most of them have earbuds inside their ear canal. So I haven't even been that close to my husband, I don't think, like talking in his ear canal. So it is an intimate relationship and it's super interesting. So I appreciate social media from all of these people that have spent hours with me sharing what they love, giving me like somebody was like, hey, you do this thing where like the sound is happening at the end of your T's or P's. Now, I can't necessarily control that. That happens with editing primarily, but it did make me go like, huh, how am I doing that? Let me record myself and see if I can hear it. Again, why I shouldn't record myself because I don't have that kind of like hearing. But it did make me go like, oh, I could probably do this on the mic when I'm doing something particularly plosive and like instead of being straight on, like turn my head a little bit to help that. Like that, all that constructive feedback, super helpful. Again, only through social media would any of this have happened.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, I want to talk about your prep process because you started talking about it a little bit of how you prep to no end, right? To make sure that you are ready.
Mhm.
I've seen some like narrators post like behind the scenes stuff, and it made me even more fascinated about the process because you do make these books come to life. They're in your ears. My husband and I both have AirPods in our ears like a
Yeah.
lot. Um, so how do you prep for these? And we're also going to get to the spicy stuff too, because some of it I'm like, whoo, and so how do you prep for all of that and get yourself in the right mind for all of it?
So my process for reading a book, I'm a girl that loves a spreadsheet as much as I love art. So just bear that in mind. I'm an over prepper. Um, but I think it makes a difference. And that is, I generally read a book 3 times before I have sit in the booth to record it. It's actually a super big pet peeve of mine that I know narrators that like don't read the book ahead of time and just sit in the booth and um like just think it's good enough to be like chapter one, I'm reading this book because you stop whenever you make an error and fix it. So it's but to that I say they are not leading the book is leading is dictating their pace, whereas I read in prep so much so that my approach to narration is I want it to feel like one big monologue, even if it's in third person. I want it to feel like, I mean, Fourth Wing, it's not in first person. So it needs to feel like you are driving the pace, and it's coming from Violet's perspective, or Rhiannon's perspective, Zayden's perspective, Taryn's perspective. And the only way for me to do that is to have read it enough that I know what's coming on, like, and I'm not surprised, and I have a plan of attack. So the first time I read a book, I always have my notes section on my phone ready, because I create a like basically a page of notes that is like, well, with the Empyrean series, I now have a spreadsheet because there's just way too many characters, way too many voices. I have to, like, it's an org chart of like who's died, who was in book one but not in book two, but shows up in book three for once. Like, I have to keep it all, it's a whole world. Fantasy as a rule is really tricky that way. But for like a one book off, I just start writing the characters' names, when they appear, what page, and then as the author throughout that first read starts revealing character descriptions that might influence their pace, or how they sound, or if they have an accent or dialect, or if they're young or old or whatever, I, next to their names, put and type in my phone who, like, those words directly from the author's mouth. And then I will be like, uh love interest to X was married to so and so before, and now they got divorced, and this is the, so I'll write like a quick synopsis of who all these people are. That's read through number one. Read through number two is, I hopefully have talked with the author or a representative. The other thing that I do during read through one is I jot down any words that I don't know the pronunciation of. And in a fantasy series, as you can imagine,
Hot.
you'll be like, is it Basgiath? Basgiath? Like, how do I know how it's pronounced? So I write a whole list of how you want these pronounced, and then I submit that, and then I ask the author, okay, if you could cast this book, who were you thinking of for Taryn? Who were you thinking of for this? I don't always get an answer. So actually, I didn't get to speak with Rebecca Yaros for book one, but I did get her pronunciations. Everything that every word that I didn't know, she's given me an audio with the pronunciation of what she wants. So I have her voice saying Ternanak, Rhiannon, which was very contentious. People out there, Rebecca wanted Rhiannon and not Rhiannon, and that is why I say it. And
Mm.
to all of you out there named Rhiannon, I love that song as well. And Rebecca wanted Rhiannon, and therefore I am honoring Rebecca's wishes. So read through two, I'm embedding the ideas that the author has said, and I'm typing into my PDF. Every time I do a search find, every time the word Rhiannon is in the text, I am typing O-N over Rhiannon, so that when I get to her name in the book, I don't make a mistake and then have to fix it. It's every time, any pronunciation typed above it in red. Because I use something called iAnnotate, which is like a PDF reader, and you can add sound clips to it. You can highlight different colors, which I love a highlight. I love an underline in a different color. And then I handwrite notes in. So that's read two, is typing in all those notes and then kind of assigning voices. So if I think Tern sounds like a cross between Grumpy Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, I might, to the left of all Taryn's dialogue, until I know him, right? Write like Harris. And I'll remind, or if it's this person sounds like Maggie Smith, I'll be like, I'll write Maggie Smith. So it reminds me to say the line like Maggie Smith. And so I'm not making the mistake of like, who is it and what did they sound like? I label the heck out of this document. You should see it. Then the third pass through, and that takes a really, I'm gonna tell you, a really, really long time with the Empyrean series. There's so many
It's a
words.
long book for each
It's
of them, and they keep getting longer.
Keep getting longer. So many characters, so many places that are made up that need pronunciations, so many people that die, so many people that also then have a dragon or a griffin.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
know, now there's venom.
Yeah,
They keep multiplying.
yeah.
So, like, all of that, that takes a long time. And then the night before I record, I read through what I think I'm going to get through the next day in the booth
Mm.
so that I'm fresh. Like, okay, today she's got to battle, this person's gonna die. This is a fun scene between all of the leaders of the world. And Rebecca, you're gonna have to do, an Irish accent, an Australian accent, a Spanish accent, whatever. And if they're tricky chapters like that, I will actually practice reading those aloud. If I have to switch through character voices a lot, I'll kind of try to do that in order to make myself more dexterous. And then on day one of narration, I've got my goal. I know how many pages I'm trying to get through. I know what is going to be accomplished emotionally. And then I bring a gigundo black iced tea unsweetened, a gigundo water, and then I say chapter one. And
Oh,
it's like, begin.
I read to my kids, or I have a lot more when they were a little younger, but they all have these different voices, or I try to do different voices and I can't keep them straight. So I need a big giant spreadsheet if it's a book that I'm going to read over and over, I guess. But I'm
Yeah,
also a spreadsheet person. So I'm like, yes, we were meant to be friends.
I know. And look, my way doesn't have to be the way, it's just kind of how I think about it. But the more I will tell you, the more I label my document, the less mistakes I make when I'm in the booth, which what saves the publisher time. And I have more of a 1-to-1 ratio of, if the book is 29 recorded hours, then maybe I have been recording for 39 recorded hours or 37 recorded hours because of the accuracy that I'm able to do, um, and be able to what I do, what I like, what I like my ultimate goal. I'm able to accomplish what I sought out to do, um, the more that I prep it ahead of time. And I think it then makes it sound less read, like we fly up, he does that, they attack us on the left. And I know that that's a style, right? But I would rather my audiobook sound like we fly up, he attacked us on the left. What's going on? Taryn, what are we doing here? I don't want it to be like, Taryn, what are we doing here? Are we, you know? And I think that there could be a tendency with, and I get it, it's a lot of words to just read the book. But
Mhm.
I am trying to act the book.
Yeah.
And that's my personal approach to audiobooks.
And I think that is why I absolutely loved it. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank you. So much of what I do is like solitary work alone in a booth, like just me. And so like then I sometimes forget that people will actually, like, once I've lived the book and then it like goes away and I've worked on other projects, I'm like, oh right, people are gonna listen to it. You know, like
Yeah.
it's done, it's so done for me and over for me. And it's now in the ether. And I'm like, oh, people liked it. Yay.
Oh, and it keeps going, right, in the future.
Yeah,
But you
totally.
mentioned the 29 hours. Like Iron Flame is 29 hours, right? Is that
Hmm.
your longest book? And how do you break up the recordings in a
Interesting.
day?
I tend to be, I used to run marathons. So I'm a girl that can hunker and put my body through pain for long periods of time. I'm less than a sprinter. I am not a marathoner because I'm swift. I am a marathoner because I'm stubborn. Um, because I'm never going to win the marathon. I am just going to complete it. But like that kind of like, I'm in and I'm going to hunker down. So generally, I do full days unless it's very, very unless one of the characters that's really dominant is very gravelly or aggressive, then I have to pull back the hours because your vocal cords are just like, F you, Rebecca, I am exhausted. But I tend to do days that are 10 for this series. I do 10 to 6. I take like maybe 40 minutes for lunch. I do a couple of breaks in the morning to like stretch legs and pee. Same in the afternoon. but it is a solid, I'm gonna say, 6+ hours of speaking in a day.
I'm amazed because I read 5 books, like kids' books out loud to my kids. I'm like, oh, guys, I need some water. Like, I need a break, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm hydrating a lot. And another trick of the trade is having a green apple in the booth, because when you start talking a lot, you just get mouth noises. And so for you, as you're recording yourself on your podcast, if you start to feel like you're sounding like the banana noise, I'm eating a banana, take a bite of green apple, and it's gonna clean your tongue and clean those sounds away so that you can have less mouth noise.
Interesting. Okay. If I ever start reading more books or voice
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
I know that. So, can we talk about some of this spicy stuff too?
Let's do it.
So, how do you prep for that? How do you mentally think about it? Because before I was like, oh, I never really used to read like spicy, smutty things, and now I'm kind of like, ooh, there's a place and it's totally cool. And I talk to people about it now, I'm not like embarrassed about it. What are your thoughts on prepping for it and other people hearing you read it?
So I think um for me, I don't do it too much because, as you can, I have a younger sounding voice, so generally people don't. It's because Violet is the age that Violet is, that I think that's why in this particular series, and then a couple of other series, like I will pitch down, be much lower, and then embrace it. The What I'm trying to do for the entire book is be Violet, um, or be Zayden, or be whomever. So just as much as I'm locked in, and Rebecca's words and the author's words helped me be there. They've written these really grabbing action scenes, and Rebecca's excellent at dialogue and character development. So the words do the work. Um, is it harder to do when the book is not as well written? Yeah, it is. But when the book is doing so much of the work for you, because read it or listen to it, it's engaging you emotionally, then I'm Violet when I'm riding the dragon, and I'm Violet when I am riding Satan. Like, I'm her. So I have to approach her emotions and do it from that regard. Now, is it awkward? Yeah. I have my beloved engineer Cody that has helped me for 3 books now. And sometimes I'm like, all right, Cody, here we go. It's one of those chapters. Let's do it. And if anything, he and I try to be as word perfect during the record, because, once you finish the first initial record, it gets quality controlled, and then you get fixes sent back. Absolutely. So I try during those particular chapters to be as word perfect as possible and solicit his help in listening for those, so that I don't have to punch in at a really awkward place, where at least when you set the tone of those kinds of chapters, like, you're both in it together, right? You're like, here we go, we're gonna do this, blah, 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 and we're in. To be then on a random Wednesday called back to do an hour of fixes, to then have to be like thrust. Like, that's more
Midway.
awkward than when the whole day is about, or not the whole day, but like the next 15 minutes is about that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you have any funny stories to share about people that have read or listened to, the spicy stuff that you have read and they ask you different questions? I just remember a Sarah J. Maas interview where she was asked about her books, right? The Avatar
Mm-hmm.
is fairly spicy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she talked about her mother-in-law asking her questions. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. I mean, writing it might be different than reading it, but I was like, oh, the questions you might get from family members.
So it's really funny. I have two quick anecdotal ones, which is, I'm half Cuban. My father immigrated here from Cuba, and my madrina, my godmother, is also my aunt. She's in her 80s, right? And like because Fourth Wing, like they've all known that I'm an actor forever and ever and ever. They've known it, cartoons, blah, 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 that, but like audiobooks, it's not everybody's thing, right? My family as a whole, they're not huge audiobook listeners. And so it's not like they were out listening to Stephanie Garber's books anyway, and then they were listening to me. But because Fourth Wing blew up so much, my mother-in-law was like, "Ay, pero Becky, should I be listening to this?" And I was like, "Mother-in-law, no, do not. This is not." I was like, "I'll send you other things to listen," but I did not want my mother-in-law, although also off topic, but I will never forget being a kid riding in her car. She's such a free spirit and like amazing. And like the song came on the radio. I don't know if you remember the song. It was like, "I don't want anybody else when I think about you. I touch myself." So
Yeah.
we're riding in the car, and Madrina's like, "Oh, I love this song." It goes, "I don't want anybody else." And I'm like, like, we do not need to listen to this song together. It just cracks me up. That's really just an older family member and my awkwardness around that. The other fast, funny story is my daughter was in this beloved Montessori school at the age of 2.5, 3. And her teacher, that to this day, she's in pre-K now, but to this day, Miss Liz reaches out every once in a while. It's like, "How's my Lola?" Blah, blah, blah. She's this like, honestly, it's what, when you drop your kid off, you're hoping that someone loves your child as much as Miss Liz loved my baby girl. And she was like, "Hey, Rebecca, so I'm riding in the car and I'm listening to this audiobook and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this sounds so familiar. Why is this voice so familiar?" And it's because my maiden name is Soler. So my acting name has always maintained Rebecca Soler because it's an ode to my dad. He passed away when I was younger. And it's an ode to myself because I love my husband, but it's my work. So I keep it under like my name. But my married name, Graves, is what Lola has, and like love being, Mrs. Graves. So to Miss Liz, I was Lola Graves's mom. And then she was like, and then I realized, and then I Googled, and then I realized it's you. And I was like, "Miss Liz, what chapter are you on?" Because it was Fourth Wing. And she was like, "I just started." And I was like, "Abort, abort, Miss Liz." You do not want to know. So now what I do as I come in contact with people, it's either one or two things. They don't realize that it's me that they listened to, or I say, "I'm going to give you the option. There's some spice in here. So you decide whether or not it's going to totally freak you out to listen to me read you some spice." And some people are like, "Noted. I will read it in book form." Like my beloved cousins who were like, "I will not listen to you, cuz I am going to read this in book form." But others are like, "Yes, girl, yes, work, work." So it just cracks me up. It's not an area that, and I also, with a lot of my fans that know me for other reasons, Marissa Meyer's books or whatever, I have to say, "Hey, by the way, this is a different genre. So if you are used to listening to me in the car with your children, this is not one of them."
Mm. Oh, yes, in the car with your children, yes. That is a big thing, with my AirPods, because I listen out in public too. I'm always like, "Okay, let me make sure it is triple, quadruple check that it is not something else." I was listening to Lights Out once, and
Uh-huh.
the ortho, I think that was what it was, and then it switched, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, oh."
Exactly. You're like, "No judgment here."
Yeah.
I I love it. I love it. And honestly, um, I think like it's all great. Let's face it, like in the real world, I would not be cast as many of these people that I've gotten to visit, right? That's why I love all genres too. In general, I love them all. I use, listen, do I use books as like a form of escape? Like it is very challenging right now, particularly in the US. Um, and like we are battling for the very moral fiber of our society, right? And I don't want to escape it. I want to help in the battle, but it is nice to when I am not like battling or after a day of battle, to have some moments in completely different worlds that I would never have access to if some brilliant author hadn't captured it for me. And so I say yes to all auditions. I say yes to all genres. I'm a yes and kind of gal.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. How did the Empyrean series specifically get to you, and what was that
Can
like?
I tell
Because it's
you, it
blown
is,
up, right? Like
it's
nobody knew that
totally,
it would be this big.
totally blown up. It is, I think, the only nepotism that I've ever experienced. Cause like I told you, my father's Cuban and he was a chemical engineer. My mom was a nurse. Like they don't know anything about this world. Um, and, but I went to high school with um, a woman named KP Simmons, who is Rebecca's PR rep. And Kelly and I were in choir together and did musicals together. And she knew that I had a very established voiceover career and audiobook career. And when Rebecca's book came out, she was like, "Hey, Rebecca, I know it's an indie publisher, but would you be open to reading this book?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, KP, like I'll do anything for you." Like, and I was like, "Oh, good for her." Like that she's like, this is a new genre for her. Like I'm always celebrating like an indie author. And I'm like, I'm happy to, of course. And I remember prepping the book and being like, "Oh, wow, this is really good." Like sometimes I do indie favors for people and I'm like, okay, for them. It's not my favorite book, but like all celebration, right? But I remember like, you know, all of like you're immediately sucked in. I'm like, whoa, death, dying, war college. This is cool. Look at this. And then I remember not realizing because I hadn't done any due diligence on Rebecca. Even if I had done a quick Google, I would have seen that she does a lot of like romance stuff. But then I remember like while prepping Fourth Wing, going like, oh, there's sex in this book. I'm like, all right, hunker down, girl. There's gonna be some sex in this book too. Like, but I remember thinking like the plot and the world building was so strong that it was just like the sex was just, it's just a part of the life instead of being what the book is about, right? And no judgment for all of those books where the book is about the sex too, because there is a world for that, and I celebrate it as well. But what I loved was this is a book, it's sort of like Game of Thrones, like it is Game of Thrones, which also has sex in it, and well, let's face it, lots of violence and lots of unconsensual sex in it. But it is an epic story that also includes that facet of these characters' lives in like the best complimentary way, I think. Um, and so I was like, of course, Kelly, I will do this for your author. And then, holy Lord, Amy, it blew up. And I was like, this is insane. And it opened me up to a whole bunch of people, listeners, that weren't familiar with my stuff because maybe the other genres of books that I've been offered or aren't things that they have. It's certainly none of them. And I can say this for most books had the like notoriety and just absolutely pandemonium that Fourth Wing has had. Like in a decade, like you can say there was before the Hunger Games when YA was like disrespected, and then there was the Hunger Games where people were like, I think I'm an adult and I like YA, right? Yeah. And there, I remember reading the Game of Thrones series, and or like the Lord of the like there are or Harry Potter, right? There are series that there are some of my favorite books in the world have not risen to the fervor. There are Pulitzer Prize winning authors that have never had a sold out stage door fans holding books at town hall in New York City, waiting to hear Rebecca talk, you know? And I can only imagine how this has felt for Rebecca to go from basic like obscurity to like a not just like a microphone in her face, but like a huge, like, you know, NASA level spotlight, like shining down on her. And the fact that in any way, like, I am more known because of this series, it's just like, I would have never known that. So while I have an entire career of auditioning and hustling and doing my work and doing my work and doing my work, and KP was like, would you ever consider doing an indie author? I'm like, would I ever consider? Of course I'll do an indie author. Like if it had done nothing and I just recorded the series, I would have been proud to help this series come to life. Like, because I think it's fun and great and excellent. And it would have been like it would have been the series that when people would say, like, what do you recommend that maybe I haven't listened to? I would have been like, you know what's a really great read that I loved? You should try this Empyrean series. I don't even if you're not into fantasy, like it's really fun. But I didn't do any of that. Like the world took over and we are all just on a ride going into the stars on this thing.
Yeah. I so I wasn't a huge fantasy or romantasy person until I hit ACOTAR, and then I went into Fourth Wing and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love this stuff." And then it was the action from the very beginning that I went, "Husband, you want to read it with me because it's not just about the romance, right?" And he's
Yeah,
more of a nonfiction person, and he read it and he's not like super gung-ho like I am, where I'm like rereading it before the next one comes out and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and I have the physical books too because I wanted to do the annotation and I can't
yeah,
do what I'm reading. So anyway, or listening, I should say. So yeah, but he got into it too. So you have people of all genres, and it's fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, what do I personally gravitate to a lot of like dramatic literature, and I personally try to read as many international authors as I can because I think I get paid to read a lot of US based literature, which is great. But I feel like the things that like blow my that make me learn as a human
Mm.
are the ones where I would have like I don't know anything about this culture, this country, this
Yeah.
uh, island, whatever. That's what I when I'm in a bookstore browsing, I try to find the thing that I can't relate to at all and read that book. Because I'm like, I already know what I know. What don't I know? What
Mhm.
haven't I seen? Oh my gosh. And I'm also someone that I have to finish a book, even if I don't love it. I am not a did not finish person.
Mhm.
Um, and it is because like if nothing but like there could be a sentence on the last page that for whatever reason was like, that's why I had to read this book. That's an idea, a
Mhm.
thought, a visual, something that's made me reflect on something in my own life. And that's the reason. Did I love it? No, I didn't love it particularly, but wow, that's an interesting way of putting that. I never thought about it that way. That that's why I'm a absolutely I finish everything I start. Out of respect for the author and like just because I'm like, I don't know what I don't know. I know I don't know a whole lot, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. There
So
have been several books that I'm like, oh, can I just put it down? But then I loved it by the end. So,
yeah.
there's all these in betweens. And if I had put it down, then I would not have known. Like
Yeah.
your point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like my favorite book that I read personally last year was I don't know if you've read it, was On This Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous
Mm-mm.
by Ocean Vuong. Oh, heartbreaking tale. And actually his current book, I think Oprah just made her current Oprah read.
Oh,
It is so magical. And it is not a life I at all, like a young gay male from Vietnam, I want to say, like could not be further from my reality. But oh, the glory of his prose, of his imagery, of his language, and it was tough subject matter, but I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful and glorious. But what do I get to do as a palate cleanser? You know, I read Akotar. I was like, yes, this is my thought. So I do like a how do I evolve as a person book? And then I flip it, and the next one is like beach read, love
oh,
it.
I do that too. I'm like, nonfiction, fiction, nonfiction, fiction.
100%. Amy, my God, where do you live, Amy? Why aren't we
I'm in
friends? Why don't we live?
California. If you had been to
Oh,
LA, then we could have.
oh my gosh. LA, whatever. I'll come to LA. We can hang out.
Yes, please. I'm in San Diego, so I'll just drive up to you and then
Oh, San Diego. Yes. Even better, further away from my industry.
I used to be in the Bay Area, so I was in the Silicon Valley life, and we recently moved to San Diego. So
Love
yeah.
it. Love it.
We talked about the pay a little bit. You said obviously you get paid to make the product. Can we talk about that a little bit? I don't know how much you can share, but there's
I will definitely share because I
okay.
feel like this is the part. I feel like young actors, I wish they knew what the money means because they need to understand what the money means and that it is absolutely okay to have another job while you're building your art. Um, it really, and it makes you, frankly, it makes you a better artist. Like, don't apologize for your quote unquote corporate or survival gig or your restaurant gig. Uh, all of those gigs, I met amazing humans that I stole their voices and have used them in different projects, right? And I've met some of the most glorious humans ever, not in my industry. So I'm grateful for that. But so originally, when I started in narration, you would be paid for the recorded day. So as often, like if you did 4 days in a book, there was a day rate for the day that you recorded. And it was a rate that nodded to the fact that you also were doing prep, right? And so it kind of was like a sizable, the day rate might be anywhere between like, depending on who you are, like $1,000 to $3,000, right? Now I get paid by the finished hour. So they switched it because as you can imagine, I'm sure there were narrators that were like, I'm going to speak very slowly in pace, which is going to elongate how many days I'm in the booth. And you have to pay me every day that I'm in the booth. But I'm not, but also like, I'm not just crapping on my actors. Then the publishers were like, well, I don't want that. I want to only pay them. I don't care how long it takes them to do it. I'm only going to pay them for the duration of the actual finished hour. So if it's you will get a finished hour rate. So
Okay.
Audible narrators vary greatly, which is the absolute truth. Entry level is around $100 per finished hour to like $350 per finished hour, and then potentially 500 or more, right? And the way that they do it is they're like, if you've done 0 to 25 books, you're at this rate. 25 to like 200, you're at this rate. And then depending on your following or whatever. So I myself am in the larger of that rate threshold, which is good and bad. Like I'm being paid for the quality of my work and the experience that I have, but also that prices me out of some other books that they don't have the budget to afford me. And I get that. So I'm personally at a, I would rather do quality than quantity game, understanding that there is no shame for the people that are doing lower amounts of work. But like, so if you're doing the $100 per finished hour, you do the math on what 29 hours is.
Mhm.
That is, you've heard already that I prep the book 3 times
Yeah.
and I'm in the booth. So that's actually why my per finished hour rate is what it is, because it allows me to, well, look, it's denoting like she puts a lot of work in and the quality's there. And so, but when somebody more famous does it, I'm sure they get like a, you will receive $50,000 to do this book, or, $100,000 to do this book, or whatever it is. I do not receive $50,000 to do a book. I do per finished hour. And I think that that's helpful. Also, um, if you're doing a commercial, you get paid a session rate, which if it's radio, it could be like $200 an hour, but then you get residuals. And then, so every time it plays, there's a certain threshold. And with, television commercials, the session rate is larger and then the residuals are better. But what we're falling victim to is that a lot of, well, the online platforms, the Netflixes, the Disneys, all that, they're now trying to do away with residuals, which was how an actor really could make a living, because your voice is being heard thousands of times, right? And they're trying to do buyouts. And the reason they're doing that is because now celebrities do voiceover and commercial. When I started my career, they would never, because it cheapened their brand. So, a good friend of mine used to be the voice of BMW. Now John Hamm is the voice of BMW. So if they are paying John Hamm $1 million to do that voice, and he gets a BMW in every city that he shows up in just as a perk, then the other things that they have budgeted for in their media buy, they're trying to have a buyout. So, like every industry, there's a 1%, and then there's a lower, like, earning bracket, and the middle class is becoming smaller and smaller, which is not, I mean, I want to keep you light and fluffy, but the reality for my young actors coming out and starting is that now that celebrities do voiceover and do commercials, which was our prime place to be able to earn like 6 figures a year and like maybe buy an apartment or buy a home. Now they are cutting the costs for the no-name actors to afford the celebrity actors. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And look, I understand it. I'm not like, it's not me being like, how dare they? Like, it's again, commerce. But all I have to say is, again, there is room and space for a lot of us. And provided that you can systemize your process so that if it takes 29 finished hours, it's only going to take me 36 hours to record, then I'm maximizing my amount of time that I'm investing and being the best that I can be, that frees up other days to be able to record something else. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And did you say there's no residuals for audiobooks?
So generally no, but for me, for Fourth Wing, there is.
Mm.
And
Thank goodness for that.
yes, so the way that they do it is like a certain level of down, I mean, it's not like I'm gonna retire with these residuals, but it is kind of lovely to, like, whatever I earned the first time around for the book as a whole, once they hit a certain threshold of downloads, to be able to get that check again. So I call it, like, it's not Lola's college money, but it might be Lola's like textbook money by the time it's 2035 and or 38 rather, and she's like entering college. Like, maybe I'll be able to afford some meal plans. Who knows what the cost of
It's
college is
something,
gonna
right?
be. Right,
Yeah.
right, right. And actually it's not nothing.
Mhm.
And I like to be really like honest about the money part of it, because I think that's the only way that people can be really helpful and plan accordingly. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Can we do some quick fire questions to finish
Totally.
this out?
Sure.
Okay. First, what are you reading right now? If you're like me, maybe you have multiple books in different formats.
I am reading Donna Tartt's, oh shoot, I always forget. Donna, what is it? I'm pulling it up. The Secret History by
Mm.
Donna Tartt.
What has been your favorite book to narrate and why?
Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh man.
I know it's hard to pick a favorite. It's like telling you to pick a favorite child. I know you only have one right now, but
I know, seriously. Oh, I'll tell you what I loved for a variety of reasons. Marissa Meyer has a book called Heartless.
Mm.
It's a one-off, and it is her sort of origin story for the Queen of Hearts. And it allowed me to be the Cheshire Cat. It allowed me to be the March Hare, and it allowed me to be like some really fun little characters that was just, and it was heartbreaking because, you know, eventually this like character that you love is eventually going to morph into off with her head. And so the whole like book, it was just such a delight. So I think for the variety of some of those childhood characters that I grew up loving, getting to take a shot at them, that's why I'm picking that book.
I love that. What or who are your all-time favorite books or authors? It could be someone that you
Ooh,
worked with or a book that you would recommend to everyone.
okay. I love Margaret Atwood. I haven't narrated any of her stuff, but I just have always been a huge fan of Margaret Atwood. One of my all-time favorite books, very randomly, is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. I loved that book. I named my cat Sayuri. I don't know if that's sacrilege, but I love like a Bronte sister. I love a Jane Eyre. I love all of that. I love a corset. Um, my gosh, I'm trying to think of some of my other favorite authors. Ocean Vuong is now a new, favorite on this earth. We're, briefly gorgeous. Um, yeah, I think, um, and it's been like a true privilege to be able to work with Stephanie Garber on every single one of her books and with Marissa, like to see their evolution from debut novel to like formidable established author has been just like a true privilege in my life to be a part of that journey in a small way.
That's amazing. And did you say your cats' names are Saki and Sayuri?
Yes, well, R.I.P. Sayuri, but my current cat is Saki and my other cat is Kabuki.
I'm Japanese. Oh my God.
Oh, yay!
I
I'm
heard you say
obsessed.
Saki
And
earlier.
my RIP was Wasabi, Sobs, Senor. And no, internet, none of my passwords are my pets' names because I know better. Because I'm not a fool. Because I learned that lesson from somebody else and immediately implemented it. Also, can I tell you a fun fact?
Yes.
A great way to pick passwords, if it's not using the strong password and just signing, is using favorite song titles and picking the first letter of every word and then adding some numerals and things. So it's a great way that you know your favorite song. So I'm going to say happy birthday to you would be like capital HBTY with whatever numbers you want. And it's harder to pick. I learned that from somebody in finance and love it. Mine are not happy birthday to you, but as you can imagine, like they can evolve.
Yeah. So I am in the finance world. I might have learned it from someone else too. But I also pick sentences that I can remember and do the thing. So
Love
you
it. Ooh, Amy, sentences too. Love it, love it, love it.
anything else you want readers to know about you and how can they connect with you further?
You can find me on the gram. Uh, what is my, this is so terrible. I don't even
And
know
I'll
my
include
name.
links too, so
Okay,
people
yeah,
don't
yeah,
have to
yeah.
be like, oh, let me write this down.
Yeah, I think like the place I'm mostly is on Instagram. It's the easiest place. DM me and I won't block you unless it's something lewd and disgusting or racist or transphobic. You can learn that about me. I am for equal rights and I really want to build a world where my daughter is safe, your daughters are safe, and your sons are safe, and they get to learn a different way of what the definition of being a strong man is. So I'm going to say that and let that inform who follows.
Yeah. I am a boy mom and I'm all about, letting them be who they are and not having that toxic masculinity and all that kind of stuff too. So
100%. Yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah. Mhm.
Thank you so much for chatting with me, Rebecca. It has been so much fun, such an honor. I'm trying like not to be like, oh my gosh, it's Rebecca, it's Rebecca.
Well, I'm hoping that now you met me, you're gonna realize like that's so unnecessary.
Oh, now I just love you and I just want to talk to you all the time and I wish you lived like next door so that we
I
could.
know we would clearly have a book club together. We would have many cheese and crackers and charcuterie trays. But if you are ever in NYC, please do not hesitate to reach out. Like, I love this town. You have to either love, you really have to love being here to live here and to compromise in the variety of ways you have to compromise when you're living in New York City in tiny boxes. But I love it here. And I will take you out on the town and show you all the remarkable ways that all the real people that live here live. And happy to be your tour guide.
Oh, you were so sweet. I have not been since graduating high school, so I'll have to put it on my list.
Girl, the fall is a great time.
So I have heard because my husband hates hot stuff, hot
Mhm,
places. He was from Florida and he's like, never again. But anyway,
mhm.
fall, winter, all those times. Besides
All
math.
those times. Amy, you are a delight. You're now my new best friend. And
Oh,
reach
so
out at all. Keep me posted on any of your various. I want to make sure that I can listen to future, you know, guests that you have and be able to continue to learn from you and from the remarkable women that you're collecting.
you're amazing. Thank you so much for your time and this wonderful chat. I really appreciate you.
All right. Have a good day.